Good evening, everyone. Onegaishimasu. Today I'll read Kisei number 17, Rei Seishin. We as human beings are given a mind that is directly connected to the universe. This is Rei Seishin. Water, when it settles, can clearly reflect the moon. When our mind becomes calm, Rei Seishin expresses itself clearly and unmistakably. Once this mind arises, in that moment, any selfish urges and desires disappear, and the universal mind of love and protection for all things shines forth. Let us polish our Rei Seishin. So nice to see you all. I hope everyone's doing very well. Today I'd like to go over something that I spoke about a few weeks ago. My talk will maybe be a little briefer this morning. I talked about just sitting. And this was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I'd like to go over that again in a maybe more condensed way. So in our practice, sometimes, last week I spoke about kind of how we progress in the practice, how it develops for us, kind of typical ways that it develops, and how sometimes when we're going through the biggest struggles in this practice, that's when we are making the biggest revelations. So the biggest revelations are happening for us. So in the same way, this idea of not trying to make anything happen when we're sitting, just being here and allowing whatever shows up to show up. That doesn't mean we indulge and go along. Because we've developed awareness, you may notice that you're drifting away, that your body is slumping, something like that. And all we're doing is letting that noticing be like the bell, like the meditation bell, the reminder to be in this present moment. But that doesn't mean that things happening around are necessarily wrong or bad. It's okay. This idea is like having a house, being in a house or in a room with the windows open to the fresh breeze, versus being in a room with no windows at all. Right? We don't want to be kind of closing in on ourselves, forcing ourselves, making ourselves do a certain way. We have some guidance with how we do ki breathing, how we do ki meditation, Shuchu-ho, Kakudai-ho, how we do mind-body meditation. Beyond that, it's just allowing awareness to develop, to work its way in, and to guide us into the sitting practice itself. So, any time that you find yourself maybe becoming critical, thinking, I'm not accomplishing much, that may be the time that the most is being accomplished. I say this I say this out of personal experience. And it is that kind of persistence being willing to sit with it, that will allow the understanding to come. It's not, the practice isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to be challenging. And it's good that we have at least this challenge in our life. I'm sure everyone has other challenges as well. But this is all very helpful for us, not in the traditional sense of improvement, right? Like improving at a skill. This is more like, as I've said before, as Curtis Sensei said many, many times, it's like peeling away the layers. And that only happens with giving things space, giving things time. For most of us. It can happen in sudden bursts as well. But for the majority of us that practice sitting, it takes time. And all of the things that we may say about our own progress, that is just kind of the ego trying to pull us away from the practice. Because it's not having its own way in those moments. So I wanted to leave you with this morning. I've mentioned this before. Someone, I'm not sure who said it, but this idea of a stone carving. I think this was a Buddhist speaking, so it was a stone carving of the Buddha sitting in the middle of the desert. That image, just sit. And let the breeze come, let the thoughts come and go. Whatever happens is for us a reminder. All right, so I'd like to begin our practice with key breathing, and then we'll go through our other two forms. Okay? All right, let's begin with key breathing. Sitting up straight. All right. Well, we have some time for some comments or any questions, anything related to what I said earlier, to your sitting practice, how it's going, any difficulties, any revelations, understandings. Please feel free to share. And then Curtis Sensei, go ahead.
Good morning, Carl Sensei and everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it has been very revealing and good to ponder the practice of practice of practice. You know, that it's not just all about what you experience. For me, in practice and the reminder about, you know, how, for me, how I tend to grasp and, want to achieve something. And in that achieving, I separate myself because I make it me. I make it about me, striving, reaching, trying to accomplish something. So, um, yeah, and I liked what you said. I think it was last week, maybe even the week before, about the uh, the what was the word? The edges of your practice. To even consider that. So, yeah, it's been very good to, yeah, consider the practice, on ad infinitum. So, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. It reminds me, a few years ago, a student asked in class, well, this was a relatively new student, had only been with us for a couple years, I think, and very involved in the dojo. And she, one time during class, at the end of our 20 or 30 minutes of sitting, she said, "This is so hard. How do you do it? Or how do you get past that?" Or something like that. And, I said something like, "Oh, what makes it hard?" And she said, I don't want to sit here. I want to get up and move around, and I just can't, I just have trouble sitting still. And I just don't like it. And I said, "Well, who are you doing this for?" And she kind of looked and, is it for your own entertainment? Is that why we're doing this? And she kind of thought about it for a while and thought, well, no, I guess not. And said, "Well, what part of you wants to be entertained?" And she then, provided an answer. But, the basic point there was that, I said something like, we're sitting for the whole world, right? In other words, we have this concept in this way of conceptualizing it in Kiaikido of the small mind and universal mind, Rei Seishin, Shoga, Taiga. And she was, trying to make it about Shoga, like I want to sit, I want to enjoy this. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. In that sense, we're sitting for Taiga, universal mind, for that way of being. And so that can put the part of us, the small self, the small mind, that wants its own way all the time, it can put a damper on things. So yeah, it didn't quite come out like that when I asked her. It came out a little differently, but that was years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like anything we do that involves giving. So sometimes we do this, we do acts of kindness for ourselves, for our own edification, to make ourselves more, feel more important. But, with this practice, as we mature, that idea of giving happens in a very, very different way, the act of giving. And it doesn't matter what I experience or whether I am thanked or whether I receive a reward. And the sitting is just like that, right? It's not about receiving some reward for doing it. It's about letting all of that go and just be here, right? And just like have that experience of just melting away, even for a moment. And when we do have that, then you go, oh, wow. And then you want it again. And then you, me, I want it, right? And so, yeah, this is a little bit what I spoke about last week, too, about how we tend to go back and forth like that. But thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else like to say something?
Hello, Sensei.
Oh, hi. Yes, Vernon.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
fine.
I like your backdrop.
Yes, the picture I take.
Yeah, you took this. Yeah, that's wonderful.
But diving yesterday and couple of days, is really a calmness experience and a practice that um, just sitting and being in the moment and being attentive, surrounding yourself with a lot of underwater wildlife is great experience too. And that edge of practice helps to notice a lot around you, especially underwater. It has that effect a lot. I, in fact, this class and our interaction is our practice too. And to jump on, having to express our moments is also our practice too.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I've never been scuba diving, so, but I've been underwater, I've been snorkeling and this kind of experience. And I can imagine that, scuba diving, probably breathing is important, right? You have to breathe in a calm way, and maybe you're floating there underwater and you have this big expansive space around you, and everything seems very peaceful, right? And when you're breathing in that calm way. Of course, again, this is just me imagining it, and my own experience, swimming or snorkeling underwater. You don't really breathe without the tank, though. But so I guess the real question here, right, Vernon, is whether when you're involved in a conversation, as you said, in an interaction, whether you can also experience that expansive, spacious quality that you experience when you're underwater, all alone with the water, So it's when we're in a conversation with someone, maybe imagine a challenging conversation. That sense of, that calm breathing, that sense of expansiveness, spaciousness, tends to disappear. We tend to shrink, right? When things get difficult. So that's, I think, and especially for you, who you're experiencing this wonderful thing when you go scuba diving, to be able to experience life that way on land, when you're around others, when you're at work, when you're in class, when you're on the mat, right? To have that experience. And of course, you won't always have that experience. There will be times when you shrink or collapse. Everything comes in. All of your view is narrowed. But really all we have to do is notice that. And that reminds us, oh,
Well, another thing is
I'm going to have this experience. Yes, go ahead.
another thing is when I'm teaching underwater, we have a different level of communication and
Ah,
notice and teaching a skill and noticing to correct the skill or to remind them about what we demonstrated the skill is a way of communication and noticing at the same time.
I can imagine that it takes a great deal of patience too, right? To communicate underwater.
Yes, a different level of hand signals and
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
and to encourage the success of the performing that skill too.
yeah, wonderful. So please apply that patience and that kind of understanding to
Yes,
every communication that you have, not only underwater, right?
yes.
That's the lesson for you. Well, thank you, everybody. I think it's time to close our class. Um, I appreciate everybody, your support and willingness to share this hour. Domo arigato gozaimashita. Aloha.